Enslaved Odyssey to the West, developed by Ninja Theory and published by Namco Bandai, is a fun action platform game which has engaging gameplay and a compelling story, despite having numerous problems here and there. Loosely based on the Chinese novel Journey to the West, the game is set 150 years in the future where humanity is on their last legs due to the aftermath of a global war. You play as Monkey, a lone wanderer who's held captive on a slave ship. However, after escaping his imprisonment by chance, he catches up to a young woman called Trip and barely manages to escape with her from the burning transport ship. But after regaining his consciousness, she puts a slave headband on Monkey's head in order to command him, informing Monkey that she needs his help in order to reach a village, but in return that she'll take the headband off, and as such he has no choice but to cooperate to Trip's cause. What intrigued me about the story is how Monkey's vague personality evolves over the course of the game. In the beginning, Monkey is an aggressive, tough-as-nails character who doesn't care about anyone around him, but as the story progresses, he becomes more sympathetic, not only to Trip as her safety is very important to him, but also to the people that weren't so lucky in surviving the ordeal. Above all, the plot is about the relationship between Monkey and Trip, of how it starts out with distrust, but gradually develops into companionship as they reach towards their goal. The game is split up into 14 chapters, each taking about roughly 20 to 30 minutes to complete on the normal difficulty. Gameplay is broken up into combat, platforming and puzzle solving. The combat starts out with your typical light and heavy attacks that you can utilise, however by gathering orbs within the environment or from dead enemies, they can be used to upgrade Monkey's combat abilities, such as faster shield regeneration, increased health, better situational awareness or even a focus attack which does more damage. Monkey can also use his staff to shoot projectiles from afar, however you'll mainly use this to take out foes from a distance as well as to destroy certain obstructions in order to progress. For the most part the combat is fun despite being simple, however the camera at times does get too close to the action which does limit your self-awareness. This isn't too bad when you're facing a single enemy, but when encountering multiple hostiles at once it can make combat a troublesome affair, especially when you're dealing with enemies with shields. Nevertheless, despite the camera being an issue, ironically beating your synthetic foes into a pile of nuts and bolts is really enjoyable. Later on in your playthrough you gain access to a hoverboard called the Cloud, which can only be used in certain levels. Personally, I didn't like this gameplay element due to the loose controls, mainly during the chase sequences where it requires precise inputs to avoid various obstacles. This did lead me into some frustrating deaths. Out of combat, you'll be traversing platforming sections as well as solving puzzles. Although the platforming is linear, and to an extent a bit too easy considering there's no fear of dying, but Monkey's animations make these parts of the game fun to do. Whether you're trying to catch a dragonfly or climbing up the side of a building, the platforming does have a sense of flow to them. But where the game comes into its own is how you can use Trip's expertise in order to overcome certain situations. Earlier in the game, Trip can use a dragonfly in order to spot inactive foes, landmines, turrets and other points of interest for Monkey to exploit. Furthermore, Trip can create a decoy in order to distract enemies for you to get close to your objective, and has a personal EMP if enemies get too close. This team-based gameplay also carries over into the platforming sections where some areas in the levels are only accessible to Trip, and certain gaps may need Monkey's aid in order to safely traverse. There will be times where Monkey will have to go solo in certain situations, but these moments don't detract from the cooperative gameplay as it's implemented very well into the game. Finally, there will be times where there will be puzzles to solve, but most of them are pretty straightforward to say the least. Visually, the game looks beautiful. The environments are well detailed, which feel colourful and vibrant, even though it's set in a post-apocalypse. The characters are well designed with lifelike animations, in addition with some superb voice acting to complement them. However, there are times when the environments did suffer from texture popping and the frame rate did struggle to keep up what was going on screen. While these problems weren't necessarily game breaking, it would have been nice if these issues were ironed out. Despite its numerous setbacks, Enslaved Odyssey to the West is a good game. The story is compelling to play through, the gameplay is fun, especially that it gives a sense of cooperation, and the visuals, although lacking in polish in some areas, are well detailed. As such, I give Enslaved Odyssey to the West a 4 out of 5.
It's pretty cool, huh?
Yeah, it's pretty cool.